the best part about collabs is you could just stand there, day drink, and take photos, and that's the host brewery does all the work. So they literally made the beer, and we're like, cool, we get to be a part of it.
Maybe dump some hops in the kettle or something that.
Take the photo.
Just for the photo op, right?
Yeah.
Hey, we're working here.
Yeah.
I think you just described our podcast. We're sitting around literally doing day drinking on some beer that you guys have made. So
it's fun.
Same sort of thing.
Cheers.
You've stumbled on into the Tap Takeover Podcast.
Welcome back to the Tap Takeover Podcast, brewer interview series. We're here in the Solid Non-Fail Studios doing a little tasting before our interview. So we're doing Pulpit Rock today, and guys, I gotta tell you, Alex and I went, and it was fantastic. These guys are doing something special there in the shadow of Toppling Goliath in Decorah, Iowa. And we got some great beers to taste tonight, as well as we did some live tastings with Bob and Justin, who were fantastic to us, treated us like royal guests. Alex, what did you think of our visit there?
You know, it's such a fun trip. This is my third time being in Decorah. You know, I was out there for the Assassin release, this most recent one, and then Morning Delight last year. You know, hopefully people will go back and listen to that Toppling Goliath episode. But that was my first experience in Decorah, and this was much more fun because I got to spend more time out there. I spent like three nights and 4 days in Decorah. I gotta say, it's a beautiful little town. It's worth a trip. You know, if you get some breakfast at Ruby's and stop by Mabe's for dinner and maybe Rubaiyat for a tasting, you're gonna have a lot of fun in Decorah. And if you're out there, Pulpit Rock is absolutely the place that you need to stop to. Most people are going to be heading to Toppling Goliath. Most people are going to be heading to the big guy. And you can't talk about these two breweries without talking about the other brewery. But Pulpit Rock was absolutely my favorite part of our Decorah trip. And a lot of that was these amazing beers that we brought back to do a little tasting with. The first one that we're going to be trying here is the Burundi Pour Over, which is a coffee stout. And actually this one, Jim, I was super surprised. This comes in at like 6.5%. This is a very drinkable coffee stout.
Yeah, so this is really a series for them, the POP, the Pour Over Porter series. In fact, by the time this episode releases, they'll have yet another, the Jamaica Blue Mountain, which is a very expensive coffee. And so they're going to have more of these with different coffees to explore those flavors that the coffees bring in to this base porter. So here we have a coffee from Burundi in this porter. First of all, it's a great base porter, and the way they infuse the coffee into their porter is really fantastic. Also up to date is coffee and donuts, right? I mean, now let's talk about this as a breakfast beer.
You can't have coffee without your donuts, right?
Right.
I'll tell you what, guys, I could do both of these as a breakfast beer. I mean, if you're going to do some day drinking, this is the way to start your day. Coffee and donuts and the Burundi pour over, they're just phenomenal. And what is the coffee and donuts clocking in at?
I got to think it's bigger than the Burundi Porter. The one thing about Pulpit Rock is they don't put the ABV on the cans. I mean, they're doing such small batches that these are basically hand-canned, hand-labeled. Everything is handcrafted at this brewery. The really fun part about that coffee and donuts, though, is they actually went around town first time they brewed this and got the day-old donuts from the gas station. So when you look
they're half price,
Exactly. So when you look at the label, it doesn't just say coffee and donuts. It says coffee porter with gas station donuts. It's very specifically written because they're using day-old gas station donuts. And I don't know. Jesus, what do you think between the two of these? Do you have a favorite? I kind of lean towards the coffee and donuts on this one.
Well, Jim and I are the big coffee drinkers here, and yes, the coffee and donuts is very unique because it has that coffee and that sweetness. It's an amazing balance. It really is great, but I just love the intensity of that pour over one. It is heavy coffee, and I just dig that. It's fantastic. I love that one. But I can understand people who don't like coffee would like the sweetness of the donut one.
See, I do not like coffee. I don't drink coffee at all, ever. And I prefer the Burundi over the coffee and donuts. The coffee and donuts is a little bit on the sweeter side, but this is, I mean, if coffee tastes like this, I mean, sign me up.
You should be, yeah. Join the club, man. This is really
This is what good coffee tastes like. I don't know
Jim, are you with me on this? I mean, this is a coffee drinker would love this.
This is so fantastic. I got to learn their secrets of how they infuse the coffee flavors into this porter, because it is so from start to finish with minimal bitterness from the coffee flavors.
And these are beers that are pretty fresh. And you age these, coffee falls off. This is an experiment I do not want to take. These are perfect now.
Yeah.
This is not an aging beer.
I would, this is perfect. I love them both, and but they're just, to me, they're different. One is like very hot, coffee heavy, and I love that. The other one is coffee and sweetness balance, which I also love the balance. So
it kind of gets into that pastry porter, I guess. We've heard of the pastry stouts.
It's walking that line.
Yeah, and like Andy and I always say, we drink our coffee in our beers, and this is a hell of a way to do it.
Yeah, for me, I don't take any sugar at all in my coffees. I mean, I drink it pretty much black and bitter. So.
And to take another line from Andy, awesome mouthfeel. It's a very heavy beer. It's really good.
Yeah, I would agree with all of those sentiments, and I think it's time to get into the interview and see what Bob and Justin have to say about some of these beers.
BEERUN Beer Run.
This week, the Tap Takeover Podcast has taken the show on the road again. We are in lovely Decorah, Iowa, to sit down with one of the hottest breweries on the block, Pulpit Rock. Opened in 2015. Justin Teff and Robert Slack are celebrating this week as we speak their 3-year and 1-week anniversary. And we really appreciate you guys joining us on the show. How are you guys doing today?
Good, thank you.
Yeah, fantastic. Thanks for having us.
Absolutely. Well, we were really excited to talk to you, especially after the Great Taste of the Midwest. We met you guys at the pre-Great Taste party. You guys had some amazing pastry sours on tap. Can you tell us a little bit about those beers, and tell us a little bit about kind of what got you guys going in the beer community?
So Levi puts on a really good show, invites a lot of cool breweries. We feel honored to be invited, and we hope to go in the future. Pastry sour is kind of like people have used the term like pastry stout, sort of like, hey, why can't that be applied to sour beers, or at least kettle sours? And so we do it for fun. Sometimes there's like a specific dessert that we try to emulate. So for today, we're releasing Key Party, the key lime pie sour. Other times there's like, hey, why not try adding a couple different ingredients, see if they taste good? Yeah, we do a couple different varieties. I would say like our first one, Justin and I kind of spitballed some ideas on the road to a collab with one of our favorite breweries, Alluvial. And we're like, hey, what if we had like graham crackers and extra lactose and vanilla to like one of the fruited sours that we do? We tried it out and people liked it. So we have a whole series. They're called, there's rhueberry, blueberry, mixed berry, but they all have berry in them. Because it started out with like, oh, we should add graham crackers, and Teff's like, no, honey graham crackers. Or honey teddy. It's honey teddy.
Yeah, honey teddy grahams.
Yeah, sorry, I got it wrong. Yeah, we like to experiment with stuff like that.
Tell us, what kind of beers were you guys drinking when you decided making beer might be for me?
When I really got into craft beer, I was living out in San Diego in 2010, 2011. I was like, there's a fantastic beer scene out there. I just absolutely fell in love with West Coast IPAs and kind of that whole booming scene out there, and started homebrewing with my roommate at the time, and just fell in love with the brewing process and all aspects of that. And then eventually moved back to Iowa, and there was another brewery in town at the time. Just was a frequent patron at the tap room there, and then eventually got a job in craft brewing.
Yeah, how about you, Bob? What kind of beers were you getting into?
So I started homebrewing at a very early age, and honestly, the first foray into like real beer was trying beer on a German exchange trip, having like real Hefeweizen and Pilsner, like, which I thought was nice. Like, grew up drinking Busch Light, as one does in this area of the world. Wasn't until like I moved to Minneapolis to attend school up there, trying like corked 750s of Belgian beer was actually like first like, wow, holy crap. Like I remember the first time I tried a 750 of Duvel, just like wanted to flip the table over. I thought it was so good. It was also really expensive at the time. I was like, holy cow, $9 for a beer? Are you kidding me? But it was really good.
Yeah,
And-
times have changed as
Right,
far as
right.
beer pricing for sure.
Just really gotten into that, and kind of like anything and everything.
So let's talk about the impetus of you starting here in Decorah. As we mentioned, there's a giant brewery already established here.
What?
Yeah. When you started, was there any concern about competing against them, and what really drove you to start the brewery?
We were approached to start Pulpit Rock, and we saw it as an opportunity to. I wasn't working in the brewing industry at the time we got approached. Saw it as an opportunity to make this more of a beer mecca, I guess. Incentivize people to come to Decorah. It's a pretty small town. It's a beautiful area. There's plenty to do besides just drink. But yeah, no, it was a very good opportunity that
Kind of like
to
straying
us.
away from like the mass production of like a few brands, but really trying to do unique stuff, but just constantly make new beers. It's like you wouldn't want to eat the same thing every day. Like you don't want to drink the same thing every day. Like we get really bored if we have to make the same thing every day. So that's what we love about where we are now, is the freedom to do literally whatever we want to do. You want to add graham crackers? That's great. You want to make a clean Pilsner? That's also great. That's what we love.
Yeah, you guys really complement rather than compete, I think, here, because it's my first time trying Pulpit Rock, and I'm already blown away by the fantasticness
Well, we're blushing.
of the beer.
Yeah, I think one of the really fun things that you guys do is that you don't have that set production schedule. So, I mean, anything could be on tap at any time. There's not. You guys must have some things like barrel aged Sticker Shock. I'm sure it comes out at a certain time every year. But for the most part, you guys have a lot of freedom to kind of do what you want. That's
other than our flag. Well, I don't even want to call it a flagship.
We don't like
feel
flagships.
Obligated to brew it now because it's a pretty good seller. But Softig, our New England IPA with Mosaic and Simcoe. Otherwise, yeah, we try and keep the tap list as fresh as possible all the time, kind of rotating.
Try to have something for everybody.
Yeah.
So that's got to pose some challenges too, right? As far as what sort of ingredients you're getting at a certain time. You might not have the exact hops that you might have wanted.
Oh, for sure.
So tell us about those. What sort of challenges do you find with the kind of boutique brewing approach?
Well, especially when we first opened, we didn't have a hop contract, and especially that year, there wasn't a lot of quality stuff on spot market for a reasonable price. So we really didn't make that many IPAs, or very good IPAs. Now, I think we make okay ones. They're not great, but we're getting into it. But in terms of like availability of ingredients, like we try to use, when we say we use ingredients, we try to use real ingredients, so we don't use like any extracts or purees. So actually, fun project, this coming Monday and Tuesday, we're going to be transferring about 4 wine barrels of beer, mixed culture beer. It's been sitting in wine barrels for several months onto 1,000 pounds of peaches we have to cut up. So that's going to be real interesting. Yeah, that's going to be a fun experience. Like I was mentioning, Key Party, the pastry sour, our Mike was hand zesting limes for about 8 hours on Monday, and like his arm was just in pain afterwards.
Just doing the Lord's work.
Yeah, so like in terms of like seasonality, like if there's fresh fruit, we'll grab it, and we try to think, I guess, seasonally with what beers we release. But also like maybe it's the dead of winter, and maybe you want something refreshing, and limes are available, so maybe we'll throw something at you.
So one question, and this might be a little bit of a difficult one for you guys because you do so many different eclectic beers, but we always like to ask anybody that we interview if you could kind of take over the taps at the Tap Takeover Podcast and, take over maybe 5 or 6 taps for us and kind of give us some of the beers that would best tell the story of Pulpit Rock. If you're able to do that, which beers would you guys choose?
So a nice clean Pilsner
Yeah, Pilsner Michael.
in the number 1 slot.
Nice.
Yeah.
Probably a double IPA.
Yeah, one of them.
Yeah.
Take your pick.
Some sort of pastry sour.
I really like, so we did it's called church salad. We literally I brought my juicer from home. Teff's much faster at using it. I'm pretty slow at using it, but we hand juice about 2 flats of pineapples for like a single half barrel, 2 pounds of marshmallows, some toasted coconut, and then toasted walnuts as well. So it tries to emulate what some people consider salad, like marshmallow fluff salad. It's more of a dessert, but
Yeah, I got to try that one at Great Taste of the Midwest, and
yeah.
I just kept coming back. That one got a lot of popularity.
yeah, they're fun. I mean, don't get me wrong, like we love like proper wine barrel aged, like mixed culture beers like that, but these are just more like fun, like, ooh, let's throw this all together. So we like doing that. Probably like a pastry stout as well, like a milk stout or a barrel-aged version. If we could do a bottle condition thing, we're dipping into our first mixed culture barrel-aged program, which we can actually drink here in a little bit.
Yeah, that's it. Let's pop the top.
It's
on
a
that,
it's a beer that Teff developed
Oh, excellent.
nice.
when he was a young man.
Yeah,
So-
Teff, why don't you tell us about this beer?
So yeah, this is #Gallagher. It's definitely evolved over time. It was way back in the day one of my homebrew recipes. So it was originally just a clean American strong ale, 8.5%, 9% at the base, and then re-fermented with 4 different types of berries: strawberries, raspberries, blackberries, and blueberries. That's what we did last year for #Gallagher for it's kind of like our anniversary release beer. This year, decided to throw it in some wine barrels after clean fermenting it in stainless, and then inoculated it with lacto and Brett, and then re-fermented it on double the amount of fruit that we did last year, and then bottle conditioned it. It's been sitting in the bottles for a couple months now. For our first foray into the mixed culture kind of wine barrel aged stuff, we're pretty happy with the way it turned out.
And I was wondering when I heard the name Gallagher, I was like, is this a reference to somebody at the brewery? Then I saw the ginormous what do you call it?
Sledgehammer?
Sledgehammer on the front.
So yeah,
You knew right away.
Contrary to popular belief, there's no watermelon in it. You may taste watermelon. I've heard that from many people. But yeah, it's a mixed berry.
So is
mixed
that
culture
how you
beer.
created the puree? You just
For
smash
the original like small batches. Yeah, we were literally like
just hand smash.
yeah, the hammer's still around here somewhere. But yeah, just smashing fruit, and so that's where the name #Gallagher came from.
So as we do on the podcast, we're doing a little live tasting. Jim, what are your first impressions of this guy?
Well, it's clearly a mixed fermentation. It's a strong nose on here, and the wine barrel. I'm getting the wine barrel right away in this. It's definitely got a strong sour. One of the stronger sours I've had in a while, mainly because I've had so many, Berliner Weisses and kettle sours that this is more of a true sour.
Which we're happy with.
The mixed fruits are really delicious in this. It's a wonderful berry flavor.
Yeah. So what do you think our listeners should expect drinking Gallagher here for the first time?
It's actually developed a fair amount of acidity since we bottled it, which I absolutely love. But yeah, you get that mixed berry fruitiness, a fair amount of acidity, a little bit of funkiness from the Brett, a little bit of that barrel character coming through.
Right. Yeah,
So-
that's what I smelled on the nose, is the Brett. Yeah,
Yep.
that horse blanket. And it quite dry, too.
Yep.
It's very nice.
So one question that we typically ask is where do you guys kind of fall on the cellar aging? You guys have aged this in barrels. Would you recommend that our listeners go take this home, lay it down in their cellar for a while, or is this pretty much aged to perfection, ready to go right now?
I would say typically when we release a beer, it's ready to drink. With a lot of our adjunct barrel-aged stouts, I would say drink them fresh because the adjuncts are just going to, more of that barrel is going to come out. The adjuncts are going to kind of fall off over time. With this one, we're not really sure since it's kind of our first foray into it.
Yeah.
And like I said, the acidity is developed fairly quickly. I mean, it's definitely ready to drink right now if you're so inclined. Drink one now, age one.
Yeah, that's kind of the fun experiment, see how it ages over time, and but definitely drink one fresh, so you have a baseline approach to it.
So I think it's fun. I mean, like when people would like age imperial stouts or barley wines for forever. So going back to beers that fall in love with, I absolutely love Thomas Hardy's ale.
Okay.
So much so that back in the day, I traded for I still have it, a 1978 Thomas Hardy's ale.
Oh boy.
And on the label it says "Don't open before 1988."
So,
And so like I
nailed
think
it.
that's pretty extreme. Yeah. Like, wow, did it? Yeah, I think people have definitely moved away from that and realizing that you don't need to age it forever. And like maybe you like that taste, more of like an oxidized taste, but not that it's bad, but it's definitely not at its peak. So like why? It's like you wouldn't have a perfectly ripe peach sitting, on your table and just like let it mold or rot. It'd be less than what it is like right then. So
Yeah,
drink it at its peak.
Yeah, Anello from Central Waters made the point that you as the brewers do all the work for your customers. You age it for as long as it needs to, and you release it when it's ready. And
You just got to put it in your mouth.
yeah, it's so easy.
It's good advice. Tell us a little bit about the space. So this was what was this building before you guys moved in, and kind of tell us about what the process was like getting some of these fermenters and everything in here.
Challenging. Yeah, when we were first showed the space, we're like, there's no way.
Yeah, it was. So there was a functioning laundromat in the front half of the building, which is now our event space. The back half is basically 2 garage bays. At one point, it was like a dairy depot. I think it's been
it's like
a
two
car-
garage bays, basically.
Yeah, car repair shop, like a few different things. When we actually looked at the space, it was just
Nothing.
overflow storage for the laundromat at the time.
There's dirt on part of the floor, too.
Yeah, and it was like when we were approached to start this place, and it's like, we have this space. It's like, you gotta be kidding me.
Like, I hope you have a lot of money.
Well, you want dirt. That's how you get the terroir of Pulpit Rock.
Exactly.
Right?
That's true.
Yeah.
It's coming out in Gallagher right now.
But yeah, the more we thought about it, the more we figured that we could make it work, and if we outgrew it, fantastic. But so far we haven't. As you can tell, it's fairly tight in here, and we've jammed more and more things in here over time.
It's like a submarine. You know, you can fit it all in, but you need to be very clever. Yeah, we've upgraded over time. We've gotten some larger tanks. We literally have to like move things in and out. We have a canning line now, which you see the brew house stairs right there. We literally have to take those off in order to get the canning line through. You know, it's all part of setup.
So you said it's like a submarine. Are any of you sleeping on the fermenters at night?
Hug them a lot, but
Not yet.
yeah.
Yeah, so we are actually sitting here recording in the production space. It is a little tight, you know. We're sitting on kegs, having a good time back here. But yeah, it's amazing that you guys are able to put out as much beer as you do in this very, very tight space. I think kudos is deserved.
Thank you. Yeah, we store all of our barrels in the tap room, and then now we have the front space, which used to be the laundromat. Store all of our mixed culture barrels in. I would say we've come a long way, but we've come a ways from when we first opened.
So what volume are you up to now?
Total production?
Yeah.
We'll probably hit 1,000 barrels this year.
Yeah, it might
Ish.
be like 1,200 barrels this year. Yeah, that's about the max we can do.
You guys have had a lot of success very, very early on, but was there kind of a aha moment at some point that said, "Oh my goodness, we're actually going to make this work"?
Things were definitely kind of shaky at the beginning. Like we'll even admit, like, we were not making great beer right out of the gate. There's definitely been kind of a rough learning curve.
Yeah, so I would say the best story is we were making this session IPA on a pilot system. It was tasting pretty good. And then, like, you switch, scales and just a completely new system and try to account for that. And we made a beer, it was like, okay, but this guy that had tried it, several times on the pilot system to the commercial side, like, literally came up. When we had it on tap, I was like, guys, what happened? We're like, oh, it's that bad, huh? It's like, we knew it wasn't great, but also at the same time, it's like, it's a business. So, like, there's a lot of breweries opening up, and yeah, they might not crank out like the best beer initially, but if you give a place at least like half a year or something like that, then they might start turning it around.
Yeah, we've definitely evolved over time. We're making some pretty safe beers initially. Yeah, I think have a bit of a following, so we can experiment a lot more.
There's so many breweries now that you can't really make that many mistakes before people essentially write you off. So we're lucky that people didn't. Thank you, people.
And especially in a small town like Decorah, that has to be an especially tough challenge because there's only so many mouths to go around to put that beer into. And you're dealing with a big guy, who's definitely putting out a lot of beer. That had to have been a sort of, an interesting challenge to kind of face. And the fact that you guys have such a devoted following now, I think really speaks to the great beer that you guys are putting out.
Thank you. Yeah, we tried to find a niche and went with it.
Yeah, because there's also just a growing scene here in Iowa, right? I mean, there's
Oh,
a
for
number
sure.
of other kind of, let's call them boutique, that are really making some good beer here in Iowa.
Oh, we give tons of shout outs to all of our friends. We have too many, which we love. But yeah, I don't want to name names just because we can't stop at that point. But there's a lot of really, really talented and humble people out there that are making, I would say, world-class beers, but they'll never admit it. We're just happy that they're our friends and they give us some of their beers to share with us. Yeah, like the Iowa craft beer scene has grown exponentially as it has throughout the world, even in the past 5 years. It's insane. It's like I've been going to beer fests here in Iowa for quite a few years, and now it's like go, and it's like I'm a baby-faced guy, but I look at, these other people like, who's that kid? It's like there's so many people now like so into craft beer, and it's a fantastic thing. We're just happy to have more people to share it with.
Well, I'll tell you what, you're talking about the craft beer scene here in Iowa. The fact that you guys do so many experimental beers, it means that you guys have a little more of a finger on the pulse of the craft beer community than somebody who's just doing, the same brand kind of stuff every year. What kind of trends do you guys see happening? Where do you kind of see the craft beer community in Iowa and the Midwest going?
Good question.
Yeah, I was like, I don't know if you can go like region specific with that. Like, I honestly don't have that big of a pulse or a finger on the pulse. I don't know.
Seems like, obviously pastry everything is hot right now.
Yeah, I don't know. Like we also talked like we like to make what we try to coin the term contemporary American beer. So it's like if you can make like a solid clean lager, like a good IPA. Now the pastry thing, barrel aged stouts, and then if you can also pull off like bottle conditioned sour beers, like you can do all those things. It's like you're kind of hitting everything. I don't know. It's like everybody makes IPAs. Hoping to see more people do wine barrel aged sour things. Well, I don't know.
We ask the tough questions here on the podcast.
Yeah, grilled right now.
Yeah, it seems like there's a different like IPA trend every year. Years ago it was like black IPA, red IPA, session IPA,
Brewed IPA now.
Rye
IPAs now. But
Yeah,
I feel like those,
you can add glitter to them.
glitter IPAs.
Actually, if you want, we have the Candrin over there.
Yeah, we can
add some to a glass for you right now if you want that.
Just throw some glitter right in there. I like it.
I'm serious.
Bob has a very serious look on his face. He's
Very serious. Bob's very serious about his beer.
all right, well, I think this is a perfect time to take a little break. I think when we come back, we're going to talk about some of those friends of the brewery and talk about some of the collaborations that you guys are known for, and we'll be back right after this.
All right, let's take it easy and bring everybody to Sour Jesus. Alex, what do we have?
Well, we've been trying to come to Sour Jesus for a long time, and these are the sort of beers that'll push you over. We got a couple of kettle sours here, and the really fun part is that one of them is a traditional kettle sour. That's the Show and Tell. That's a Blackberry kettle sour, Berliner Weiss. And the second one is the Key Party, which is one of my favorite beers that I've ever tasted, and it's coming from Pulpit Rock. This is a pastry sour. Everybody's familiar with the pastry stouts. They're a big thing now. You get those chocolate flavors in your stouts. It's amazing, and there's great breweries doing them. But Pulpit Rock has done something interesting here. They're doing pastry sours. So they I believe used 100 pounds of graham crackers in this beer, and fun part of the interview talking about that. Now we get to actually try it, and it was fun bringing it back for you guys from the special release. So Andy and Jesus, what do you think of the two sours? Let's start with the traditional, and then we'll talk about the pastry sour and what that pastry aspect adds to it.
I'd say it's pretty simple for me, Alex. The Show and Tell is just a phenomenal, kettle sour. The Blackberry lends itself very well to the Berliner, and it shines through. You still get that sour quality where it's kind of a little bitey and sour on the back end, but the Blackberry sort of covers up a lot of that. The Key Party, 2 words, fucking phenomenal. That's all I have to say about that. It's epically good.
Yeah, the Show and Tell is it's the gateway sour beer that we talk about, right? Has all the features has all those characteristics of a sour beer. Has that little bite, but it's not like pucker sour, just those in your face, like kind of intimidating that somebody wouldn't, a non-approachable beer. This is just a fantastic beer. It has everything that you want in a sour. The fruitiness, that little tart, and it's approachable. Yeah, that key port.
Tell me about that key port.
Well, it's just so complex. I've never had anything like it. It's very unique. When you say 100 pounds of graham crackers, that sounds like a lot. And you would think, oh, well, you're going to taste graham crackers in this, and it's going to be in your face. Everything about this is subtle, complex, and it's great. I love this beer. Thanks for bringing this.
Well, I'll tell you what, the first ever pastry sour that I'd ever had was actually at the pre-Great Taste Party. and it was Pulpit Rock, and it was the pastry sour version of the show and tell. And it just added this different aspect to it that I needed to get into. I mean, it's the sort of thing I felt like Back to the Future. Like I needed to talk to my brewer friends in Milwaukee and say, Chuck, this is your cousin Marvin Berry. This is the sort of beer that you need to be brewing. I mean, there's some really interesting aspects to that graham cracker, to the pie crust, whatever they're adding to these pastry sours that are just amazing.
Absolutely. For me, I've had some beers, the kind of kettle sours, where they are trying to attempt to recreate the kind of pie flavor, but no one has nailed that crust flavor with the creaminess like Pulpit Rock has with Key Party. It blew me away when I first tried it, and I'm like, this is the next new revelation right here.
This is that new.
It is new.
And on a side, I just love it's packaging. It's just cans. It's not what you would think the vessel that would carry this kind of beer, because you see all these fancy bottles and, the corks, but this is just, it's all canned.
It's a cool look too. And I love the names. I don't know. They come up with great names. It's one thing that we forgot to ask them in the interview, so please forgive us. But
Key Party's a little retro,
Yeah. I mean,
Throwback
show
to
and
the
tell,
70s,
Key Party, it's a little risque, some of these names, but they're fun names, and this is a fun beer.
But I think that really leads into kind of the size of Pulpit Rock today. They are, as Alex said earlier, a handcrafted operation. When we were there visiting them, that was a tight space. And I think what we're seeing here is just a functionality of that.
And I think it's time to get into the interview.
So we're back here at Pulpit Rock with Bob and Justin, and I can't help but notice there's a bit of a Norwegian Viking theme kind of going on. What's that about?
The town of Decorah. Yeah.
We're in a very heavy Norwegian area. Our name Pulpit Rock stems from the Preikestolen, which is the Norwegian translation or English translation of Pulpit Rock. We have our own little Pulpit Rock just down the street, essentially. Just wanted to kind of
tap into the local heritage.
Yeah.
So if you're unfamiliar, the actual Pulpit Rock is this tourist location in Norway. It's this big pulpit-looking stone outcrop, looks straight out into a fjord, and it's like a straight drop down in this fjord, and it's apparently it's very beautiful. We're hoping to actually go one day. A couple of people have actually taken bottles and taken photos of them at the actual Pulpit Rock, which is really cool. But yeah, I don't know, the town of Decorah is proud of its Norwegian heritage, and they have Nordic Fest every year. It's in July, and they celebrate just Norwegian heritage in every way they can. There's the Nordic dancers, there's the cookies, the varmepølse, and yeah, we thought we would tie into that because we wanted to be a hometown brewery, the hometown heroes, if you will.
Great. Any lutefisk, or is that just some crazy Minnesota Swedish?
Oh yeah, for sure. Lutefisk and Les are huge in this town, as they are in Minnesota. We haven't put them into a beer yet.
Oh boy.
Oh, I think a next sour here, mixed fermentation, lutefisk.
If you add glitter to a beer, you can do anything. I mean, why not?
All right, well, that sounds pretty crazy, like some of these crazy collaborations you've done. So let's talk about some of your collaborations. Which ones have you kind of really enjoyed the most?
Yeah, you guys kind of talked about throwing some shout outs to some friends. So what were some of the most memorable collaborations you guys have done?
Well, we started out with our best friends, Alluvial Brewing, and we did, I would say, our first good double IPA with them. Kudos to them. Called it Whippy Dippa, but for an unnamed reason, we're going to have to change the name next year to Softly Served or something like that.
Well, too close to home.
Right.
Oops.
Yeah.
Was that cease and desist hand delivered to you?
In a way.
As long as it came with a spoon, right?
Right.
So we should mention that not far from Pulpit Rock is a really nice little ice cream place called the Whippy Dip, and they do some nice soft serve. So maybe the name was a little too close.
So that kind of started everything off, and we've had a great friendship since. Our friends at Single Speed.
Yeah, Single Speed Brewing.
Shout out.
First time, well, not the first time we went down there. The second time we went down there, we made the coconut double IPA, Coconut Migration. It's a fun one.
Yeah, so we're lucky to be attached to their name It's like it's a fantastic beer.
Yeah.
And the best part about collabs is you could just stand there, day drink, and take photos, and that's the host brewery does all the work. So
Yeah.
they literally just made the
maybe-
beer, and we're like, cool, we get to be a part of it.
Maybe dump some hops in the kettle or something
Yeah,
like
take-
that.
take the
Just
photo.
for the photo op, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Take the
Hey, we're
photo.
working here.
Yeah.
I think you just described our podcast. We're sitting around literally doing day drinking on some beer that you guys have made. So
It's fun.
Same sort of thing.
Yeah, so like now, like we do that, and then they come up here every June. We make a coffee kolsch, so that they come up on a Friday. We make it. Then on Saturday we all go kayaking together. And now that we actually both have canning lines, we like to bring our canned beers on the river, which is great. But yeah, it's two coffee roasters, 2 brewers, 1 glass.
we always like to hear about the collaborations that have gone well. You know, those are always fun stories to tell. But sometimes the more interesting stories are the collabs where there's a little something that goes a little haywire. Do you guys have any of those fun stories for us?
Well, collab can't. Something has to go wrong during a collab. There have been a few times.
I think when Microphone Brewing came here and we did the Fruit Loop IPA, that was a trying day, to say the least. So the first mash, we added a bunch of Fruit Loops to the mash, basically adding flour to it, and it stuck. Like I've never stuck a mash like that before. So there's probably 8 to 12 inches of water sitting on top of this like cemented mash bed.
Oh God!
And hadn't really had to deal with that before. So I started opening the grain out door because there's nothing we can do for this one, and it just got away from me. It's like
The whole floor was
Yeah.
literally covered.
holding hundreds of pounds of water.
Hot.
And
Hot mash.
Hot water.
Did
It
Bob,
literally
did you say
literally flooded the brewery.
Did you say it hit the wall when it
Yeah,
came
so
out?
we have a very small brewery, and it literally hit the other wall, and just the entire floor was covered, and it was steamed up. Luckily, there were 7 people in the room, and we got it cleaned up pretty quickly.
Lots of people running the water and squeegees and stuff like that. It got cleaned up pretty quickly, but
And this was like February, right? This is not
Yeah, I mean,
necessarily
it's,
great
fog
Fog
conditions.
was rolling into the
Yeah,
room.
you're-
The guys from Microphone are great, and Fitz, he's a great guy. Yeah, they all helped clean up. That was just the first part of it.
yeah. So then we decided not to put Fruit Loops in the second mash, but we put them in the boil, and that was equally bad.
Bear in mind,
So-
we bought an entire pallet of Fruit Loops because Mike was like, "Yeah." Mike from Microphone was like, "Yeah, let's use Fruit Loops."
Yeah,
so we were game.
It was this like weird green sooty looking wart.
Like,
And running it through
really
our heat
did not
exchanger,
look
which
good.
was sitting right next to us.
Yep.
It's like, typically we knock out in like 45 minutes. It was like 2+ hours. It was just trickling out of the kettle.
Luckily, Microphone brought a lot of really good beers to try, so we essentially had a tasting for about 2 hours, and then went to dinner after that.
There are definitely worse times.
Luckily, we actually had a beer to sell because we thought for a while, it's like, oh boy, we finally did it. Yeah, so that was probably the worst. Another fun experience was the 3-way collaboration we did with our friends at Louisville, as I said before, and then 515 in Clive, just outside of Des Moines, Iowa. And so we decided to do this all-wheat IPA, 4 different types of wheat. Threw in some rice hulls. Oddly enough, it was the rice hulls that clogged everything up, but it got to the point where like no wort was coming out of like the mash tun. We were all looking around like at each other, kind of like laughing and smiling, but kind of like what do we do? Really though, what do we do? Eventually, we were able to bypass valve that was absolutely clogged and get some wort into the kettle. Was the beer supposed to be like an IPA originally? And it was like, because we couldn't sparge, we were essentially taking like just first runnings like only, because it was like the only wort we could get. It became a double IPA. It was good. It was very good.
Yeah.
But it was like, there wasn't very much of it because there wasn't that much wort. But it was one of those trying times that we're like, wow, we flew too close to the sun.
So not only have you collabed with local brewers and brewers across the Midwest, but you're very proud of being here in Decorah, Iowa, and you work with local suppliers as well, right? So you get your coffee from a local supplier.
Yeah. Impact Coffee. Sean's walking through the brewery right now.
The manager of the coffee roastery.
He's wearing a Bubbles t-shirt. He's a cute boy. Yeah, so they are very good friends of ours. And we essentially work pretty closely with them, like ask, like, hey, what do you have coming up? What are they getting in for coffee? Because they do a lot of micro-lot, single-origin coffees. Sometimes we ask for things specifically, but more often than not, for our house beer pour over porter, we ask for like what they have right then, and then they roast it for us. Do have a fun connection for peaches, but that's a story for a different time. It involves a great Amish man and his connection to peaches, which I won't get into. But actually, we are going to be doing a honey barrel fermented aged saison soon with Teff's sister-in-law soon.
Yeah.
Their honey.
She's providing the honey for us.
Maple syrup at all? Any
Oh yeah.
local?
Oh yeah. Sorry. Yeah. Shout out to Crane Creek.
Yeah.
So our first foray into making #real maple beers.
We're gonna get that trending.
Yeah, so I think this year's breakfast all day was way too sweet. We're going to try again, but the quality of the maple syrup is really good. When we first walked up to this producer, asked for 3 gallons, they looked at it as really, really weird. It's like we were going to throw that in a single half barrel. But after we did business with them, they're on board. So I'm like trying to think while I'm talking right now. You know how it is.
Well, I'll tell you what, speaking of collaborations, you guys did this really fun collaboration with Barntown. Nice IPA.
Oh, shout out to Barntown.
So this is
they're great people.
the Sticky Stink Juice. Tell us about how this collaboration came about and how you guys kind of put your minds together on this one.
So yeah, we have
It's kind of like friends of friends, really.
yeah talked to the Barntown guys at many festivals and things like that, and they come up for other beer releases. And
Pete
really,
the owner, is friends with Mike from Microphones. Like, met them. Like, we saw Grant, the head brewer. Like, we've seen him at festivals for years. It's like one of those things like where we haven't talked, and then like finally like, oh hey, like we should do something sometime. So
Yeah, we met the Barntown guys at the Smells Like a Beer Fest. If you haven't listened to that episode, we met a lot of really cool brewers at that festival. But yeah, really great guys, really good beer.
oh yeah.
Really
So
good
at
beer.
the Iowa Craft Beer Fest in Des Moines, there's huge line for Hawaiian Punch, a Hawaiian Punch inspired beer, and it was very, very good. Was lucky enough to be friends with them and supersede the line and get some, and it was great.
So tell us about the beer. What went into making it? What were you kind of going for, and where did it end up?
So they make a beer called Sticky Juice. We make a beer called Stink Juice, and so it's a mashup of both of those beers.
That pretty much writes itself.
Yeah. So yeah, theirs is Citra Mosaic. Ours is Mosaic, Bravo, Eureka. And so we used all 4 of those hop varieties in this double IPA. So it's basically like their beer meets our beer.
It's got a great flavor. I mean, the hops are really coming through. You got the juicy, you got the haze. It's the right color, obviously, but I don't know. There's a little something extra. I don't know. There's a little.
It's love. We put a lot of love into it.
It's the collab you're tasting.
Yeah.
I think that's it. It's the best parts of Pulpit Rock and the best parts of Barntown in one beautiful beer here.
Yeah, they're really nice. They brought us a half barrel of IPA that we were going to put on tap, but then we're just like, we're just going to drink it ourselves.
Hey, listen, there are perks to owning a brewery, right?
There are. It's a lot of work, but it's also a lot of fun.
Yeah, Jim, what are you getting out of this one?
Oh, the hop formulation is really fantastic. You don't often get Bravo and Eureka as your kind of third cousin, the Citra Mosaic that everyone puts in there. It's such a great blend. It's really tropical.
I feel that it's kind of like the Italian approach to cooking, like simplicity is best. It's kind of like the same thing with like hop blends. We really don't want to go over more than 3.
Ideally.
In this case, we did 4, but it's just like the more you add, the more you take away.
It gets muddled after a
Yeah.
while, right? I mean,
Which is really funny because we add a lot of like pastries to beers. But certain things we're particular about. Yeah.
Hops are different.
Yeah.
How about, can you give our listeners any insight into any collaborations that you guys have coming up? What can we kind of expect out of Pulpit Rock here?
Oh boy, almost exhausted at this point. It's like
That's what we do. We wear you down.
No.
And we ask the tough questions.
these are tough questions, but what's exhausting is the amount of collaborations that we have to do. We love friends, and we want to be your friend. It's just finding time to do all of them. We'll meet other brewers at fests or craft brewers conference or wherever and be like, hey bro, like we should do something sometime. For example, like I just talked to Timmy from Barrel Theory. Like that's why I was late to do this. Great guy, like they're making great beer. Yeah, now we have a collab lined up, but it's one of those things where like it's loosely lined up. It's like, yeah, we'll do something sometime. When that will happen, we don't know. We've had collaborations that we've said we're going to do something, and it's taken a year till it actually comes to fruition. So I don't know, like we're always excited to do the standard collabs that we always do with our core friends from Iowa. We've met people from out of state. There's a brewer who used to work at another brewery here in town that works for another brewery in another part of the country that I'm going to travel to. Pretty excited about that pretty soon. I don't know.
Bob's the collab guy. I think I've lined up one collab in the last 3 years.
I would say like
one is
the
Bob.
most fun we've had with the collab, like the last time was what's in like referencing our friends at Alluvial. Like we had to go down there, and like they're based just outside of Ames, and Justin went to Iowa State, and so they were able to give us like 20-row 50-yard line Iowa State tickets for free, and we're like, ooh, it's all right.
That's a collaboration.
Yeah, so it's like it's one of those things. Like if we're friends with people, like you stay in my apartment here in sunny Decorah, and we take you around. We usually take you to the Haymarket, play pull tabs, drink some Miller High Life.
Get that full Iowa experience.
You have to. There's a lot of breweries that we want to touch base with. It's just like finding the time to do it. And now, luckily, like we have connections like other parts of the country that we literally have to travel distance to like actually do. And it's like, how do we actually do that? There's a brewery called Birds Fly South in South Carolina. Sean's making amazing beer. He was on the cover of Beer Advocate. Cool guy.
Very cool.
Yeah, we met him in person at the craft brewers conference in Nashville, and like was making amazing beers. And like we're talking like he's going to come here, we're going to go there, and the best thing is he likes to call them friendship brews. It's like we're going to get together, we're going to get drunk, we're going to hang out. It's not really a collaboration. It's like it's more of a friendship. So it's a friendship brew. So
I like that.
Yeah, so he's a really cool guy. We're happy to know him. Hope that happens this next year.
Yeah, and it's really amazing. It just goes to show the fraternity that exists amongst craft brewers. I mean,
Also sorority,
Oh yes,
gender neutral.
Yeah, it's
gender neutral term.
It's definitely it's a brotherhood and sisterhood of amazing brewers who come together to make this amazing liquid that we like to put in our mouths.
Yeah, I mean, there's no other
Don't we all?
industry that does it like the craft brewing industry, right? I mean, you don't see machine shops getting together and making some new widget, the collaboration widget that they sell, right?
Yeah.
And if you guys are ever interested in coming to Milwaukee, we got a list of breweries that would be absolutely thrilled to work with you guys. We'd love to see you in Wisconsin at some point.
We love Milwaukee. I mean, we usually go to Madison for the great taste. It's one of those things like we're busy all the time. Like any brewery gets solicited to go to so many beer festivals, and you have to turn them down, and their heart's broken. They're like, sorry, we can only do so many. We also want to have our own personal lives as well.
Yeah.
Which is rare, but necessary. Yeah, that's kind of actually a fun. I love drinking wine. I won't say a snob, but like I love wine, and I don't know, like craft beer is like a really interesting industry where like now like the state of like collabs, like people lining up for cans, bottle shares, like everything that goes with it. I really don't know any other industry that attracts this sort of attention.
And the sort of devoted following, when people are they're searching online for different beers. The secondary market is insane now.
Oh, for sure.
It's become quite a thing. It's reaching some of the sort of levels of the secondary market of some of those wine bottles. Where you see them selling for thousands of dollars. Now suddenly you're seeing bottles of beer
If anybody
selling
has
for
like
thousands.
a bottle of Domaine de la Romani Conti, I'll give you whatever you want.
In search of.
ISO.
For trade.
Well, I'll tell you what. Talking about some of those beers that have huge secondary market value and just people go out of their way to find. You guys have brought out a really fun one to kind of finish off our live tasting here. This is the Fat Joe. If you could tell us a little bit about this beer and what we're about to experience. This is me and Jim's first time trying one.
So this is our bourbon barrel-aged Imperial Stout. It's the same base that we used for Sticker Shock, Fat Joe, and the Ultella within the last year or so. And we aged it on a Panama Geisha coffee from Impact Roasters here in town. Super fun, like super nice coffee. So yeah, you get that barrel. It's a 13% Imperial Stout, like fairly sweet, but the coffee acidity offsets that. Very drinkable, super viscous.
You said this was a pretty expensive coffee to get, right?
Yeah. So our cost for it was, I think, $42 a pound.
Holy hello.
That sort of thing.
So is it like a single farm origin there? I mean, that's pretty crazy stuff.
We're sad to say, like Impact would know.
Yeah,
They bought it. We're like, it's
if only
good.
had
So
you
we'll
like
use
the
it.
manager of the coffee place here.
We pretend to be beer experts here. We kind of leave the coffee up to them. It's like
Fair.
we want something super fun, like this is what we're doing with it, whether it's a pour over variant or this Fat Joe.
I'll tell you what. Cheers. Let's cheers it
Yeah,
up for.
let's cheers on this bad boy.
For an amazing beer here. This is this is coming in straight ass coffee. This
Thank
is
you.
so good.
Yeah, and I absolutely love coffee beers, and the quality of the coffee just immediately hits you. Not that the Brew pour over is a bad beer by any means. It's a fantastic beer, but this is elevated. It is truly elevated beer.
And also the base stout behind it. I mean, it's adding to the coffee. The coffee is adding to the beer. It's a beautiful symbiotic relationship going on between the two ingredients. Tell us about that base beer, the barrel aged Sticker Shock. It's kind of your base big ass barrel aged stout. Tell us what kind of goes into that stout.
So yeah, it's kind of a ridiculous brew day every time we make it.
It's all Teff. I mean, like we kind of treat it like Bourbon County, where we have one base, and then we try to do all these variants. But Justin will tell you about how much work he puts into it.
So do you boil it for like 4 hours and take a nap and then come back and you're like 5 mashes into one fermenter?
Well,
In a way.
it's kind of evolved over time. We've tweaked it. Most recently, I'll usually come in at like 4 or 5 p.m., do 3 mashes to fill the kettle, start boiling it, leave for the night. We'll put some firm cap in it so it doesn't boil over. I'll leave. Everybody will come in like 8 or 9 a.m.
Whoa,
It's
it's like 7 or 8.
all right. Bob comes in at 7.
No, not anymore.
I roll in at like 9 a.m. and then we actually do a 4th mash, top it up to get the right starting gravity, and then we'll start our hour boil, if you will.
Yeah, the mouthfeel on it is stupendous. I mean, you can tell how much grain has gone into this. It's really fantastic.
Thank you. Yeah, it's a very high starting gravity, high finishing gravity.
If you'd see how many times he's cut his knuckles stirring the grain in, you would cry.
I don't have any fingers left.
Yeah, Teff is sitting here with 2 fingers to his name right now.
Holding
Two
this
finger
mic-
Teff.
Holding this mic between my nubs.
Or Stubbs Teff.
The look in his eyes after these days, like it's like of a person that is honestly exhausted. So that's honest work right there.
Yeah, the final product is amazing, and I love how much it sticks to the glass. It's got that Belgian lacing going on. I mean, it's turning my clear glass completely brown as soon as I start to swirl this bad boy. It's so good. It's so very good. Do you have any final words as we kind of wrap it up here to impart to our listeners, reasons to come on out to see you guys in Decorah? Any last shout outs you'd like to throw out there?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, we're always trying to do fun stuff. Come visit us. We don't have a lot of distribution, so kind of have to come see us in Decorah. Don't be a stranger.
Yeah, we try to come up with new beers all the time. We are packaging in 16-ounce 4-packs now, so we'll see a lot of that in the future. We're starting, like we talked about before, our mixed culture barrel program, so there'll be more of that in the future, and then we'll continue to do the Imperial Stout releases throughout the year. We love friends, BRs.
And I'm glad that we made friends with you guys, because this has
we
been a
love
really
you.
fun experience.
too.
And I think it goes to show what we've been talking about on the podcast for a long time. That you can find the national distributors, you can find the big boys, you can find them on your store shelves in all sorts of states. But what the craft brewery industry really seems to be going towards is more a local scene. Find your local freshest fucking beers at your local establishments, and you're gonna find stuff that it's lost its flavor on the shelves. You don't lose flavor when you're getting it as fresh as possible from your local breweries.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, like, there's so many new good breweries. Like, there's so much good beer everywhere that not to knock like national brands. It's like everybody, like everyone's interviewed. It's like, oh, what's your favorite beer? It's like, oh, Sierra Nevada Pale Ale. Like, obviously, it's a good beer, and like it helped create the industry that we're in. Like, we're very happy for that, and that's a great beer. And like, keep drinking, like the national brands. I mean, like I'm using an expletive, but I crave Bell's Two Hearted. I love it. It's a great beer. But there's so many new breweries that it's like make quality beer. Like, explore them, taste them, love them.
I mean, that's a great place to end. It looks like we are out of beer at the moment, but we will definitely be back in Decorah for some more from Pulpit Rock. But for now, for me, for Alex,
I'm Jim.
Justin.
Robert?
all right, thanks for joining us. What an amazing interview with Pulpit Rock. What a fun time sitting down with those guys. Just an absolutely fantastic trip down to Decorah to sit down and talk beer with some guys who really get it, who are making the small batch stuff, who are embracing the boutique brewery aspect, who are, brewing out of one of the smallest spaces that I've ever seen. Jim, what did they say when they moved that tank in? They had like an inch and a half of space to get that thing in there.
Yeah, it's a tight space that they have down there, and Bob and Justin were absolutely the best hosts to have, because we were there on the day of their 3rd year and 1 week anniversary. It was extremely busy because there was a certain release going on at another brewery in Decorah, and yet they took time out for us and treated us like kings. Honestly, they were super awesome. In fact, let's get into these next set of beers. So coming up next, of course, last on the docket, the big stouts. We have Nothing Original, the Brorio, and then the king here, the barrel-aged Otella, which might have some hazelnuts in it.
These are some fun beers. I mean, we're talking about the Nothing Original, which is the Rocky Road Stout. So this is a milk stout with marshmallows, vanilla, pecans, and cocoa nibs. Then we got the Broio, where, they literally just threw Oreos, or, Oreo snack cookies into a kettle. And they've got a milk stout with chocolate sandwich cookies, vanilla, and cocoa powder. And then ending with that the Nutella, we're going to have all kinds of hazelnut. Let's get some first impressions. Andy, Jesus, what are you guys tasting here?
The barrel age of Otella is far and away. It just blows me away. It's very, very good. The other two, not so much. The Broio, I've seen problems with that. Too much sugar. It's been exploding if it's not been refrigerated properly. It is very sweet. It tastes a lot better once it warms up a little bit, but it's what it is. It tastes like Oreos. If you like Oreos, you'll probably like it. I do like Oreos, but it's a little bit sweet for me. So the Nothing Original is a sweet milk stout, and it kind of hits the mark. I'd actually prefer this over the Broio.
We're right in line, honestly. The Brorio is just way too sweet for me. And actually, when we poured it out, too, it just kind of just flowed over the glass. So it just, it's too much there. But yeah, that barrel-aged beer that's a star of the show. No doubt about it. But the Nothing Original is still a solid beer, though. I can drink a couple of those, honestly. It's really good.
Yeah, I feel like they're hitting the mark on the Nothing Original. All the different aspects of that beer really come together to make a something that's better than the whole of all of its parts. I'm not certain that I'm getting Rocky Road from it. That's kind of a tall ask, to get an ice cream flavor from a beer. But I really do like the way that all the different aspects of the beer are coming together. I tend to agree with you guys a bit that Broio is very, very sweet.
There's a ton of residual sugar that ended up in here, which is interesting. You would have thought a ton of it would have fermented out just naturally, but somehow there is a lot of residual sugar in this.
Even just agitating the beer when you're taking a sip, it just foams up in your mouth.
It is definitely highly carbonated. Yeah, I mean, I think this has got to go back to the design.
I guess we could say unique mouthfeel, but
Jesus, what happens as an architect when something's got to go back to the drawing board?
Well, literally what you just said. You go back to the drawing board.
Yeah, that's what's got to happen on the Broyo. I mean, there's definitely promise there.
Oh yeah, there's promising qualities of the Broyo.
Yeah, but absolutely, I think with the barrel-aged beer, you definitely get that experience that both Bob and Justin had at Toppling Goliath and working with some of the great barrel-aged beers, because a 3-year-old brewery should not make barrel-aged beers that are this good. It just doesn't normally happen. You need a lot of experience, and then you have to wait, right? But they're making great beers now.
They're knocking this one out of the park. I mean, it's really fun to go to the brewery, and it's such a small brewing space that they don't have barrels back there. All the barrels are in the tasting room. You know, you're just kind of sitting amongst the amazing barrel-aged beers that they're doing. And maybe it's the love, maybe it's the good vibes in the space, but it comes through. It comes through in the beer. There's some really fun things going on in this one. This is by far the second best thing that I tried from Pulpit Rock, and the only thing better was the Fat Joe. That coffee barrel aged stout was, I don't know, it's right up there with some of the best barrel aged stuff that I've ever tried.
See, it's a little thin for me, but the taste is phenomenal. It doesn't have the mouthfeel that I typically enjoy from a barrel aged stout, but it has the right flavors in all the right places.
Honestly, for me, it's just a bummer I couldn't go. I cannot believe this brewery produced these beers, those coffee stouts, the sours, and now these barrel-aged beers. Amazing. What a portfolio. It's great.
Well, like we've been saying, if you have the time to go, and if you win the ticket to something in Decorah, and you can head on out there, or if you just want to go visit Pulpit Rock and visit some of the fun places in Decorah to grab a bite to eat, it's worth the trip. It's absolutely worth the trip. So I think that's going to wrap it up for us, and this has been an amazing interview, an amazing episode for us, and we hope that you've enjoyed it, but it looks like we are just about out of our Pulpit Rock stuff right now. We might just have to make that trip. But for now, for me, for Alex,
Jesus,
Andy here,
Jim,
that's going to do it for us, and this has been another solid non-fail production.
He said there's no